What's up, everybody? This is Ant Walker with Ringside Intel, and let's talk about UFC 301. We've got main card predictions for you, but before we get into that, let's just briefly talk about the card itself. The card itself is definitely a drop-off from UFC 300, and we sort of expected that. UFC 300 was so loaded, just an historically loaded card with champions and former champions all throughout, but this time, not so much. So in the main event, we've got Alexandre Pantoja defending his flyweight title against Steve Erceg. It's definitely a sort of a strange matchup. I think a lot of people would have expected Erceg to at some point contend for a title, but not this soon. I mean, it's been less than a year since he debuted in the UFC. Previous to that, he was a standout in the Australian regional circuit, mainly for his submission prowess. Since he's gotten to the UFC, he's shown how dangerous he really can be. But I just feel like this is a step too soon. I expect Pantoja to win a decision here. I do think this could be a very exciting fight, though. I think Erceg can threaten with some dangerous things, but Pantoja, believe as the better fighter, will just find a way out of it and find a way to prevail. Next up in the co-main event, this is huge. By far the biggest name on this card, Jose Aldo, the all-time best featherweight in my opinion. He is returning to the UFC after 2 years away, and he will be taking on Jonathan Martinez, a rising prospect in the bantamweight division. Man, I'm not a big fan of fighters coming out of retirement, returning to the UFC, at such a high level. I mean, Martinez is a ranked bantamweight contender. He is a very dangerous guy, as his finishes of Cub Swanson and stuff prove. Like he is a very dangerous guy. However, this feels like a good way for Aldo to come back. It's not quite the Dominic Cruz fight that was sort of promised, that we knew was in the works, but this does kind of check some of the boxes. I mean, Martinez is going to want to stand there and strike with Aldo, and that just paints the perfect picture for Aldo to enter that very sophisticated countering game that he has, to play Matador to the bull and switch up to the bull when he feels like it. And then also throwing in that wrestling that we often really forget about, that Aldo's so good at, whether it be defensive or offensive. He's a very dangerous person when it comes to getting a fight on the floor or making sure the fight doesn't get to the floor. So I'd like Aldo to win this fight. I mean, Father Time can creep up, and Aldo has been in there for a long time, but this isn't just a 2 years sitting on the couch eating bonbons. Like, Aldo has been active. He's been in 3 boxing matches since, won 2 of those, had a draw in the first one, I believe. Aldo was not just some guy who just decided, hey, I want to do this again. This is a guy who's been active, who's still been fighting. And by the way, when he left the UFC originally, he was still one of the best bantamweights in the world. He's still proven to be very dangerous. I mean, the guy who last beat him by decision is going to be next up for the bantamweight title. So that should say a lot about what Aldo might have to offer. Also coming up on the main card, we have the return of Anthony Smith, the former light heavyweight title challenger, who's going to be taking on Vitor Petrino. I don't like this fight for Anthony Smith, and it's not because I view Petrino as this really dangerous guy who's going to one day contend for the 205-pound strap. It's not necessarily that. It's more so what Anthony Smith has endured over the years. I mean, since he lost to John Jones at UFC 235, he's been this divisional gatekeeper, and he's been able to turn some guys back. A few guys like Magomed Ankalaev made it through. Khalil Roundtree, who just knocked him out fairly recently, is sort of in that mix now, as he's going to fight Jamal Hill coming up soon. But this feels like this moment for this undefeated Brazilian talent to shine in front of his home country. Probably not a good day for him. I see him losing this by knockout. And next up, we have Michel Pereira against Ihor Potieria. This is going to be a middleweight contest. Pereira, this will be his 3rd fight at middleweight. For Ihor, this is his 2nd attempt to get to middleweight. His last time he came in overweight. Either way, I just don't think this goes well for Ihor. I think Michel Pereira gets his 3rd first-round stoppage as a middleweight in the UFC, to deviate very far from sort of the strategy and the X's and O's that we normally talk about here in these segments. this kind of makes me want to believe in the MMA gods, right? And bear with me for a second here, because last time Ihor fought in Brazil, he knocked out Shogun Rua, ended up being his retirement fight, knocks him out in the first round. And then he has this celebration that just looked awful in front of the Brazilian crowd, especially this legend in Shogun stretched out on the canvas, and he's, miming guns at him while he's laid out there. Probably didn't make too many friends for something like that. And to be returning to Brazil against someone as dangerous as Pereira, this is like the MMA gods proving that they exist. And yes, so go ahead and say amen to that. And finally, in the main card opener, we have Cal Barajo versus Paul Craig. I don't think this is going to be a very exciting fight, right? Paul Craig is known for exciting fights, but Cal just isn't the guy, I think, that's going to oblige this. Like, Craig likes to thrive in these chaotic scrambles and these just reckless attempts to dive for limbs. And once he gets on the floor, he's willing to just lay on his back and just bait you into trying to punch him in the head so he can try to catch an arm and triangle. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But either way, I don't think that Cal is going to play that game. I think he's just going to go out there and win. I don't think Craig is going to find his wild and crazy methods to sort of sneak away with a limb or something like that. I just don't think that happens. I think he gets neutralized. I think Cal pretty much goes chest to chest on him. And that's if it even gets to the mat. So I think this is going to be a very slow-paced decision win for Cal, and not necessarily the most exciting way to start the pay-per-view. So that'll do it for UFC 301 picks and predictions. You can go ahead and go to Ringside Intel and check out my predictions for the full main card. Of course, after the event, we will have coverage. We'll have results up. I'll do a matchmaking video as well for the main card winners, post-fight column as well. So remember, go to Ringside Intel and like, subscribe, share this video, the Ringside Intel YouTube channel. So tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Peace.